Hi there, welcome to Conversations, where we seek to advance your leader and team excellence by discussing relevant topics that impact today's organizations. Welcome to the show. Hey there, leaders. Today we will be having a conversation around creating and collaborating expectations. I'm your host, Dr. Kelly Whalen, and our guest today is Dr. Diane Wiater. She is a strategic leadership development coach and consultant. Diane has a PhD in organizational leadership, trains leadership coaches, is certified as a Gallup Strengths Coach, and certified in administering the MBTI. Dr. Wiater's passion is helping people become their best selves, and in doing so, raise their leadership competencies and expression. I can say from firsthand experience that she indeed accomplishes this with leaders. For those who enjoy Clifton strengths as much as I do, it's always fun to hear our guest top 5. Diane leads with strategic, relator, responsibility, individualization, and maximizer. Dr. Wiater, welcome to the show. Dr. Wiater, how are you on this April Fool's Day?
I'm terrific. How are you, Dr. Whalen?
I'm doing great, thank you. I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. I appreciate the invitation.
Yes. Well, I love that you're here. I love that you're going to share. I'm excited to hear about creating and collaborating expectations. So I would love for you to just share with the audience, what exactly is this?
Well, thank you. I think anytime I begin to talk about leadership or leadership roles and expectations, really one of the first things that I have to talk about is this place where we understand ourselves, our followers, the organization, and our values. And that's kind of the core of what sets us up for understanding and being able to express expectations. So let's just start with this first piece, because this place where we need to understand ourselves. First, do I know me? And how well do I know me? I think this is an important piece in what we bring, our ability to contribute. For me, I think about what helps to give and be my best. And I love the Clifton strengths.
Yes.
I think it helps people to understand themselves and understand how they work best. As a matter of fact, there's so many aspects of the strengths assessment that helps us to understand how we do and are our best. So I also think about, what do I expect of myself in leading, and what can others expect of me? So I encourage leaders to have and create a creed or commitment, and you do this. Through your book, you've talked about that leadership legacy. And I think that's an important piece to have to help us frame our leadership.
Yes.
And Cruzes and Posner talk about this when they talk about us modeling the way as a means of demonstrating our expectations for others, and thus the expectations that we might expect of ourselves, to be able to model that for them. So when we think about that too, it's important in that collaboration space then to understand the other people. And again, to me, I know we hadn't talked about this being a strengths conversation per se, but it really has to be when we're talking about expectations and we're talking about bringing your best contribution to the table and understanding how you can do that, even when you have, or particularly when you have job descriptions and things to that sort.
Yes. Yeah. So I love that. I love that we need to understand ourselves. We need to understand others and understand, through strengths, it definitely gives us that lens of understanding ourselves and others.
Yeah, so again, continuing in that space of that understanding others, because as leaders, we're serving other people. And the more that we can understand how they do their best, it helps us too in communicating what we expect of them. It's this twofold space of, I have this expectation and of them, but then they also have expectations of me or of their leaders. So we're talking about this place of contribution. I think people want to do and contribute their best in a meaningful way. I think that people want to make a difference. They want to know how to do that more, and particularly through their work. So that place again of connecting, you connect performance, expectations to purpose, mission, and vision. And this strengthens people's motivation when they understand how it is what they bring contributes to the organization's mission, vision, and values and purpose. It brings them more meaning and they're more excited to contribute. They want to find even more ways to do that. I think an important piece in this place of expectations, as we talk about it too, is that when someone's on the team, they're on the team for a reason. And it's important for us to let them know what that reason is. Like, why did I ask you to be on this team? Why do we want you on this team? That's right. And on the other side of that coin, when someone asks me to be on a team, I want to know why they asked me to be on a team, or sometimes even why did you hire me? Those are important things to understand, and it helps to frame all of the expectations that come following that.
I love that you said that, because I'm wondering how many people think when they go through the interview process and they're actually hired, why did they hire me? What was that, moment where they said, yes, you are the one that we want on our team?
Yeah, I think it's something I've done for years. And when I teach people to do interviewing, or, even mentor some folks, it's one of the things that I encourage people to ask in the interview process. Goes back to that is, okay, so is there something that would keep you from hiring me? But then once you get hired, the first question is, why me? Yes. And people kind of go, well, I hired you. What do you mean, why you? But I want to know, because it helps me, again, in framing expectation. And it, at times maybe when I bring all of that self that they hired, I can say, but you asked me to bring this, or help me bring it better, those types of things.
So good. And that goes at every level, right? I mean, if we talk about a CEO, why did the board, choose that CEO or the executive director or that organizational consultant, that coach, regardless of where, that person lands? I think that is an important question.
Well, it gives us an anchor, and when we talk about, again, now we talk about strengths. When you have that anchor about understanding why somebody hired you, it gives you confidence in bringing your strengths, and it gives you confidence in knowing that it's okay to bring that because that's what they wanted, that's what they hired, or that's what they asked. That's the contribution that they're desiring of you.
Yes.
And it brings a confidence to people. And in times that, when you're talking about your contribution and your strength, it can help you lean into something that you might not otherwise lean into when you are remembering, wait a minute, this was something they hired me for. This is a reason they asked me to be on this team. This is a reason they asked me to lead this team. They want this from me. And I can bring it with confidence, knowing that it's what they requested and what they desired.
And it's what that person has.
Exactly. And this, honestly, is a great season. We're doing this recording at a time when there's so much upheaval in the nation and the globe. And it's a great time for reestablishing or resetting, reconnecting expectations with people. There's so many people that I'm talking to right now who are asking the question of I'm not sure what's expected of me. So much of the workforce has been pushed to their homes right now, and jobs and positions, work does look different. Leadership looks different.
Sure does.
And so many stories about leadership success, leadership heroes right now, as well as leadership failures. And what it rests on is people's expectations. Where we hear of the leadership heroes, those people are going above and beyond the expectations of their followers. They're anticipating needs. They're asking questions. They're supplying resources. They are assisting with information. And where we're hearing about leadership failure right now, it's because those expectations haven't been met. It's because those people who are following or who are contributing somehow don't know what they're supposed to bring, how they're supposed to bring it, or what's really transpiring. And I'm sure you're hearing those things as well right now. Yeah.
It's all about bringing that leadership excellence, and
Yeah.
it is by design.
Exactly. It is by design. I mean, let's face it, aren't we in that place where really you can't prepare for this moment now? You're either ready for this moment and have set yourself up for the success in this time of crisis and chaos, or you're not. And organizations and people, leaders who haven't really been ready, who haven't been modeling the way, aren't really able to ramp up and be successful right now.
Yeah, that's a true statement.
Yeah, I'm not hearing about people who were meeting expectations and aren't anymore. I'm hearing the excel of that, people who weren't, leaders who weren't meeting expectations, and now it's just accelerated. And on the same hand, leaders who were, and that's also ramped up a little bit.
Yes.
But this communication piece, it is important, from the beginning of the relationship that you have with leader, follower, organization. Sometimes that happens in a written position description, but even so, there's an interpretation of each individual about what that expectation should look like. Years ago, I had an amazing boss, amazing. He had, I think, could have been 8 or 9 of us that reported directly to him. And when he hired me, one of the first questions he asked me was, how do I like to be managed? How is it that I like to be led? And it took me a while to answer that question because first, nobody had asked me before. And second, I was a little bit surprised, much the same way that he was surprised when I asked him why me. So it was a little surprise moment going on in our initial discussions. But when you think about that, how do I like to be led? Being able to communicate that to someone else. If I don't know myself, I won't be able to answer that question. But here's again where some of the communication comes in and where it's really important for the leader, follower, and in all our relationships to have that interaction and that communication. I might be able to answer a little bit of that question right now, but as I get to know myself and get to know you and the organization, I can answer more of that question down the road. But again, I'm going to lean into the strengths and say, one of the ways to even understand that with leader, follower, and teams is through doing something like the Clifton strengths. Because in that assessment, you learn what you're strong about, you learn where your strength and contribution comes from, you understand what you bring and what you need in order to be your best. Now, there's this place of that knowing yourself and expressing it. Even if two people have the same strengths, they look different in how that person works and functions. So I can't say, for example, you have a strength here and I have a strength here. I know exactly what that means to, from you. Well, I don't until we talk about it.
Yes. Yes. And I know that we share high responsibility, and that does, even though we have the same, it does show up different. And that's, a great example of remembering that we are all created, very uniquely.
Exactly. And then again, this is why that communication piece is important, in our interaction, in our relationship. And as leaders, we have to help our followers express those expectations of us, and we have to give them room for that. I've had bosses who in the past, or leaders who in the past have said, do you have everything that you need? And I thought that I might until, I have everything I need right here. But then I realized maybe I need something else. But they don't ask again. And so for me and for all of us, learning how to express that. So first, the leader has to open the door, not just once, but repeatedly, to give space for that follower to express their needs and to express what it is that they need in order to function at their best. And then we as followers, when we're in those places, we need to understand and learn how to express what it is that we need. So this expectation isn't just about, timeliness of a task, perhaps, or the quality of a particular function, but it's understanding how to create what helps me be my best and do my best. So it has to do with that organizational environment or the environment that I'm working in. So it's a check-in with people on my side as the leader to help them know, one, that what they're contributing is important. Two, I want them to be able to contribute as much as possible that they can, not in an overworked kind of way, but in a way that lets them really bring their best to the table. So that collaboration is that ongoing engagement back and forth. And for the follower, it's them learning to express what it is that they need and to be able to do that. So let's talk about this maybe on a practical level further. We talked a little bit about the strengths, and we'll keep talking about that because to me, again, I think it's something to lean into when you're talking about specific expectations for people. And this has to do with our behavior in contributing to the team. So as I mentioned before, with the Clifton strengths, we're talking about that contribution that somebody brings. And for us as a leader, being able to highlight that and identify specific components of their strengths and behavior that they bring and finding ways to ask them to do more of it. So, and allow them the space to do more in that expectation. How do they bring value? What is important to them? Do I know that? What's important to them?
Yeah, and leaders, your followers, and this goes both ways. So leaders to followers, followers to leaders. None of us are mind readers, so that expressing is important.
Right. Exactly. If we don't ask, we don't know. And we can't make the assumption that I understand what works best for someone else. I mean, we were talking earlier about, even just people's sleep patterns, but also their work patterns. Does it matter? Everywhere I've ever worked, if I can't come in before 8 o'clock, you're going to lose the best part of me. If I'm locked out of the building until 8 o'clock and I can't come in when my head is really clicking and my mind is going and I feel alert, wow, you're going to lose that from me. Or there's people who might be on the other side of that. Hey, they kick in at 4 o'clock. If I try to, lock them out, so to speak, after that time, what can I do to help engage that from someone?
Yes.
And I think this other thing in expectations that we're talking about and collaboration is feedback. And while we've said this, we're talking about kind of a bump and run a little bit. It's important that we can give that specific feedback, both again as the leader and as the follower. So asking questions that are specific to and for someone, and then allowing them to ask us. We can't assume that we're giving our best to the individual unless we actually have that feedback from them that we are. So it's not just, do you have the stapler and do you have, do you have whatever it might be? What does that person need that I might not be giving? Yes. One of the things that I think is important in our relationship and in this give and take and this back and forth is that no one should ever question where they are with me. And by that, I mean, they shouldn't question, are they okay? Are we okay? Am I doing a good job? Am I meeting the expectations? That should not ever be a question in someone's mind.
That is powerful.
That goes to that expectation. I don't want them to question that. That just creates apprehension. It creates fear. So I'm going to set them at ease. by letting them know where that is. And I want people to be able to do their best and contribute their best.
Yes. Yeah.
So we have to teach people how to do feedback.
So what does that look like? So let's just unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. So so I have this habit, and I'll just use this broadly because I think it fits. I have this bad habit of voice texting. And and I say it's a bad habit because on the other side of the voice text, I don't proofread. So my messages come across, a word that I said comes across as something completely different in the text. No periods, run-on sentences, all this type of thing. Let's say that that I send you a voice text and you get that from me and it frustrates you. Well, you've got a complaint, right? And so you want to give me feedback, but how might you do that? Well, there's this technique, and this is a feedback technique, but it's called requesting. And you've got a complaint with me. So what do? You turn that complaint into a request. And what does that look like? In this scenario, it might look something like this, where you say, hey, Diane, I know that communication is important to you. And I know that you really want to be heard and that you value, economy of communication. But I want to let you know that when you voice text, your words come across confusing. The messages is difficult to read. Sometimes I don't even understand what you want me to get from that message. Would you please, and this is the request, would you please proofread your messages that you voice text before you send them? So now you've taken something that is a little bit of an aggravation to you, something that you need from me, clarity of communication, and you've turned that complaint into a request. And in that, I've gotten some feedback. You tell me that you understand how important communication is to me and that I am not being understood because of my voice texting and because I haven't proofread the message before I send it. Then you've requested of me that I do something specific, that I proofread that message. So we've got a lot of pieces in here. I think this is a collaboration. You've got the communication and the feedback. You've set an expectation for me because you do have an expectation for clarity of communication, but I have that expectation too. And the feedback from you is, I am not even meeting my own expectation. So when you think about the modeling of that, now again, this is a really simple example, but when you think about the modeling of that, do I want to receive a message that's unclear, confusing, that has words in it that don't make any sense or that are misplaced, that I'm trying to interpret? No, I don't. So I don't want to model that and send that to somebody. I don't know.
I think that's awesome because how you unpack that diffuses the situation, right? Yeah, it was very gentle and a great way to lead by example and allow that follower to use that technique. So would that be with a leader as well? So could
exactly. Sure. I think, and that's where it goes back to opening the door. Does the leader open the door for me to do that? And we have to, you talk about giving yourself permission as a leader, but that leader also has to extend permission to the followers, and particularly in feedback. Mm-hmm. When we go back to what we need from a leader and what that leader is asking us, I think if leaders really understood sometimes how much they could give, but they don't give because they're not giving permission. Yes. I think it would be disappointing to them to know that something as simple as a little bit of feedback like that could improve that relationship with us, our communication. It could improve the contributions that I make, that you make, if I know these things about myself. And that's relationship as well. But that little example, we take that in almost any kind of expectation that there is, whatever it might be that the leader needs or or that the follower needs from the leader and the leader needs from the follower, taking that and turning it into a request can really be a valuable way to assist them. And we might have to help them. I might have to help my follower express that and learn how to express that. Part of it's modeling, and then part of it is really kind of a guiding, helping the follower to say, how am I doing on meeting your expectations, and opening that door for the follower to be able to answer that question. But then we've already talked, if you go back to expectations, the followers talked about what they expect of me, and I've talked about what I expect of them. It's not just a one-time conversation, am I able to do that and meet those needs?
And what a great coaching conversation that could be, whether it's, leader as coach, or it is, in an actual coaching session with a professional coach, really unpacking that. And again, looping it back to strengths, and how can that person really lean into their strengths in order to express themselves, in order to have the words to ask, or, even the demeanor could be something that they're working on with a coach.
Exactly. And it's that, when we talk about demeanor, we talk about how does that look? How does that look when I say this? So I'm telling you a model, but the requesting is actually a technique, but you might express it slightly differently because of your needs and because of your strengths. What is important to you in the situation. And again, going back to expectations that you have of somebody and with somebody in the process. Yeah.
That is so great. I love that model. It's simple. I think everybody can, have that tucked in their back pocket and just, bring it to the forefront and use that as a way to do that, collaborating and co-creating conversations and a way forward.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we cycle back around to this even more, where what is it that I know about myself? What do I know about my followers? The organization, my values. I mean, again, in that requesting, you've included that piece, that I value something, and being able to give that specific feedback to somebody on that, to your leader, and as well as to your followers.
Yes.
We have to help each other. I think this is a place so the complaint is kind of sometimes what generates the request. And you might not, as my leader, you might not hear me make the complaint, but, I might be having a conversation with so-and-so and they hear me make that complaint. Helping each other by saying, hey, did you know you're complaining about that? Is there a way that you could frame that as a request? And that becomes kind of another moment to help that person, frame what they have to say as a request rather than just complaining about it. And again, that's relationship, and it's listening to one another, and it's supporting each other and being able to bring our best. Because if you have a complaint, it's a place that can create a sour spot, and it can become toxic in our heart if we don't do something about that complaint. And if I have that complaint with a leader, it can just turn into bitterness. Whereas if I can learn how to express it as a request, then I'm able to give them feedback. I'm able to express a need. I'm able to connect it to mission, value, and purpose.
Mission, value, purpose.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, as we close, Dr. Wiater, what might be some just practical tips for the leaders who are tuning into us around this conversation? We'd love to maybe just pick your brain a little bit.
I can't stress enough that knowing yourself, if you haven't done so, I recommend taking a Clifton Strengths Assessment or an assessment, but I prefer the Clifton Strengths. I think it's a really valuable tool. Knowing your team. So having your team take assessments to assist you in knowing them, knowing themselves, and then knowing each other as a team builds that common language that is also valuable in expressing expectations. Take time to review your role expectations with those that you're interacting with, and to also express the expectations that you have of them. And remember, this is kind of a collaborative piece. It's not just a me telling you what I expect of you, but it's also you telling me what you expect of me, so that we can work that and agree on those expectations and have that as part of our relationship and our collaboration. Open yourself to feedback with specific questions to those around you, to those that you're serving. Learn how to do requesting and how to teach others to do the same. And then be specific in your feedback with others, connecting it to expectation and connecting it to mission, vision, values, and purpose with the individuals. I think that'll help.
All right. Those are great. Thank you so much. Gosh, just for, those tips coming on the show and really unpacking how to collaborate and co-create those expectations, what it looks like, why it's important for leaders and the whole organization. So thank you so much for that. And I'd love to be able to have, people connect with you if they'd like to. So I can put that in the show notes, but how would you like people to reach out to you?
So my website is wiaterconsultants.com or LinkedIn, and that's probably the best way to get in touch with me and connect with me, and I'd love to do that with folks via LinkedIn.
All right, so the website as well as LinkedIn. That sounds great. All right, well, thank you again for coming and sharing just, so much knowledge.
Thank you, Dr. Whalen. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Until next time, this is Dr. Kelly Whalen. Keep doing great things because our world needs leaders like you.